Na jauti kai mu da do bi kurasi wa se wanti mensi
mate ni sis bi sire why na me yikwa na tretre wo o jari malaria din ya chinsa
eja kwa kuma tu yem so onum dan proke herba mixture osisi mbadu se from oyire nso doctor ka chene se o malaria mo ani bi oni pedue mu a so onum dank antima x yare malaria ebe kokora obi wo honum a ne yem ye ne yanso a so onum dank gastro care herba mixture oho beton dank phyto care herba mixture koko ebe ye hu adwuma ma wapon waposo tutu dank extra care herba mixture obenya hoden ne watimi anante make food dank no nyina e de amamo
na ebenya dwe nya bi we
pharmacy shop and a herba shop also per dank nura ye be ma obi
pacho mo number ye sen
0266593330
enroi oba pemfo oba ma akora nufo ani akora woni mfie du mienu ntime no
FDA ahwehwe sa edwedie nkrato yi mu agya atom se eye.
Good afternoon and welcome to Pan-African News. We are coming to you from our studios in Abelemkpe 48 Swanika Street here in Accra. My name is Justice Appiah. Now to our top stories for this afternoon. Tertiary institutions to reopen on August 24, 2020. Now, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, has assured Ghanaians that the year of road project will be completed. PPP set to amend Article 88 when elected into office. Later in business, Ports Authority ready to support infrastructural development. Details of these stories, including international entertainment and sports, will come your way for the next 1 hour. We're going for a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Now moving on to our very first story for this afternoon. President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo in his 15th address to the nation orders the Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection to provide BEC candidates and staff with 1 hot meal per day from 24th August to the 18th of September. The President further orders continuing students of the University of Cape Coast, UCC, University of Health and Allied Sciences, UHAS, technical universities and other colleges to resume school on August 24, 2020 to complete the academic year.
Those final year university students have already completed their examinations. And by 18 September, SHS3 and JHS3 students would have finished their respective final examinations of WACC and BECE. As a result of reports I have recently received that some final year JHS students were going hungry in complying with COVID-19 protocols, I've just instructed the Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection to begin preparations to ensure that as from 24th August up to 18th September, all 584,000 final year JHS students and 146,000 staff, both in public and private schools, be given 1 hot meal a day. This is to ensure full observance of the COVID-19 safety protocols. Through online learning portals, almost all continuing students in our universities have completed their studies for the academic year. The exceptions are the University of Cape Coast, the University of Health and Allied Sciences, technical universities, and some other colleges. After extensive stakeholder consultations, the decision has been taken for continuing students in these tertiary institutions to return to school on 24th August to finish their academic year. Just as was done for final year students who returned to school Government through the Ministry of Education and the Ghana Education Service will ensure that all these tertiary institutions are disinfected. Universities will be equipped with the necessary personal protective equipment, and those with their own hospitals and clinics will have isolation centers to deal with any positive cases. All other institutions without their own clinics and hospitals will be mapped to health facilities. There will be no mass gatherings and no sporting activities. Religious activities under the new protocols will be permitted. Social distancing and the wearing of face masks must become the norm on campus. The Ministry of Education continues to engage the Ghana Education Service and all relevant stakeholders to conclude discussions on the modalities surrounding the opening of our pre-tertiary schools. I'll communicate in due course the decisions that will be reached from these consultations. You can be rest assured that I'll always take into prime consideration the safety and well-being of our children, teachers, and non-teaching staff in the decisions that will be taken, because I'm determined to ensure that the education of our children is not unduly disturbed by this pandemic.
Meanwhile, President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has said pragmatic measures were put in place in consultation with the appropriate stakeholders to ensure safety reopening of our air borders to human traffic, hopefully by September this year.
I know many still ask whether our borders, especially our international airport, Kotoka International Airport, will be open. Under my instructions, the Ministry of Aviation, the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, and the Ghana Airports Company Limited have been working with the Ministry of Health and its agencies to ascertain our readiness to reopen our airport. I want to ensure that we are in a position to test every single passenger that arrives in the country to avoid the spread of the virus. The outcome of that exercise will show us the way and determine when we can reopen our border by air. I'm hoping that by God's grace, we'll be ready to do so by the 1st of September. Until further notice, our borders by air, land, and sea remain closed to human traffic. For Ghana residents stranded abroad, special dispensation will continue to be given for their evacuation back to Ghana, where they will be subjected to the mandatory quarantine and safety protocols. Beaches, pubs, cinemas, and nightclubs are still to remain closed until further notice. The limit on the number of persons who can attend conferences, workshops, and award events has now been lifted, subject to the maintenance of social distancing amongst participants, fresh air ventilation of the premises, and a 2-hour limit for each session.
Away from that, General Secretary of the Great Consolidated Popular Party, GCPP, Citizen Atto, has called for economic transformation in the country. But according to Citizen Atto, he believes it is only the GCPP that can bring the transformational changes to improve the country's economic fortunes.
Therefore, what keeps us going? It is not just the quest for political power, but then for economic change. Because COVID-19 has even made the claim of GCPP much more stronger. And our energy is more boiling because the principles of GCPP espoused by our founder, the great Danlate, has become more relevant than ever. Globally across the world, the spirit of domestication, the principles of domestication is now what everybody is looking at. In Ghana here, now we are hearing about local production of PPEs. We know borders are being closed. We know several countries. Yesterday I was watching Trump talking about they are producing ventilators more than any other country. So globally, every country is now looking within. And this is what GCPP has been preaching all these years. So what keeps us going is the fact that we realize that we need an economic change, and that change has not come. So until we are able to hit it, we'll still keep preaching domestication.
You're still watching Pan-African News right here on Pan-African Television. We're coming to you from our studios in Abilinkwe 48 Swanika Street here in Accra. We're going for a short break. We'll be back with some more stories. Don't go anywhere.
Breakfast good day, every day.
Nestle, good food, good life.
This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
Breakfast good day, every day.
Every day.
Nestle, good food, good life.
This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
Welcome back. Now let's do some more stories. A civil society organization, Adams GH, has asked Ghanaians to reject figures announced from the just-ended voters' registration exercise by the Electoral Commission. In a press conference held in Accra, the group's Director of Operation, Ibrahim Adams, disclosed that the numbers from the exercise have been bloated by the Commission.
You are saying EC has come out with its own figures. The NDC has also come out with its own figures. We, as a civil society group, have also come out with our own figures. If you listen to the statement that we churn out, these are figures that we had following our monitoring exercises on the ground. We are not contesting the fact that on the ground, all party agents and other agents from other institutions had similar figures. We all collated similar figures on the ground, which was ratified by all agents, and again ratified by the district offices of the EC, and so was ratified by the regional office of the EC. The challenge we had is when the information got to the national head office, that was where the figures got changed. So there has not been a contest of the figures from any of the agents who are key stakeholders of the exercise. The issue has to do with how come there was a change at the final place where, of course, this information are supposed to go to, thereby leading to us allowing it to be looked at a discrepancy, which we feel it is not. So that is for your first question. If you are talking about the legal implications, we are a civil society group who have had engagement with our legal team. As we speak, EC have also come out to admit that indeed there has been an inflation of the figures. However, they are attributing to miscommunication, something we also find a bit suspicious, because, I mean, how can you at this moment be saying that transmitting of information from the polling station right through to your district and regional offices gets your end, and it becomes an issue of miscommunication for which we think figures are inflated for, so we don't buy into that.
You are saying EC has actually come to admit.
Yeah, they have admitted the inflation of these figures we are talking about. Check from their website. Yesterday they released a press and they have admitted inflation of these figures. However, they are attributing to what they describe as a miscommunication, which we doubt. From where? From the grounds, I mean, where the information, these figures were collated to their office. But we are saying that if you check from all the monitors on the ground, including party and non-party agents, we didn't have any conflicting figures. These figures also moved to the district and regional offices without any conflict until it got to national. Then we had figures coming out contrary to what has been what.
Now we've been joined in the studio by Azubila Salam Emmanuel, is Executive Secretary for Adam GH. Sir, you're welcome to Pan African News.
Thank you very much.
You've asked Ghanaians to reject figures from the Electoral Commission. Why are you asking Ghanaians to reject the Electoral Commission figures? What do you have contrary to what has been provided by the Electoral Commission?
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity given to us. And I'll first of all thank the executives of Adam GH, our chairman, our director of operation, and all the entire executives for giving me the opportunity to represent them today. In fact, as you heard from our director of operations, we called a press conference, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we said this particular registration exercise is fraught with fraud. And if we look at the Electoral Commission, since they started their activity, their work is consistently inaccurate when it comes to this registration exercise and the figures they have been throwing out there. Our group studied and followed the exercise from the day 1 up to the last day of the exercise. And we have realized that the Electoral Commission keep on giving us different figures on their website. They will post this, they will call a press conference. They said, let the citizen know. Briefing. They will give us figures. You will go to their website, you see the same thing. The next minute you go there and see different figures altogether. And we always monitor this thing, you know, because of evidence sake. Anytime we go to their website and we see this drama, we take a screenshot of it. The next moment you come and they will change it, you take a screenshot of it, and we have all those evidence from their own website. And we have realized that this particular electoral commissioner and her deputies are cooking out figures. In fact, we were so disappointed when we heard the president.
You said they are cooking out figures. Now let's interrogate the figures provided by the Electoral Commission. And I have the 2020 provisional register for the 10 regional, for the 10 original regions. And we have that of Western, Central, Greater Accra, Volta, Eastern Ashanti, Bono, Ahafo, and then Northern, Upper East, and Upper West. The Electoral Commission says out of the registration, they've registered 16,963,306 people. And the regional statistics is here. You have the Western region, over 1 million people were registered. Central, 1.5. Volta, 1.2. Eastern regions, 1.6. Ashanti regions, we are told they've registered 3 million, over 3 million people. Brongahafo, 1.5 people. Northern region, over 1.6. Upper East, 650,000 and above. And Upper West, 470,000 and above. What do you have as an organization contrary to these figures provided by the Electoral Commission?
Yes, as you mentioned, you know, in our first press conference, we came out with the daily inflated figures from the Ashanti region, where the Electoral Commission started their inflation from day 1 up to the 7th day when they ended the first phase. And they came out to apologize and said it was an error, and therefore they are going to change it.
Okay.
That notwithstanding, if we look at when they ended the first phase and they came out, that's the 7th edition. They gave us that was from day 1 up to the day 31. They said the Electoral Commission registered 50,045,438 people.
Okay.
It was published on the 3rd of August, Daily Graphic, that this is the the number of Ghanaians registered. Right there, within that same period, on their website, they posted 50,117,773. If you look at the difference, it is 74,335 registrants.
Okay.
Where from that figure, you give us a figure at the end of the exercise, and we know that you are giving us, let's say we are doing some work in Pan-African TV. We have finished today's work, and tomorrow we start another one. So the number we got today is past figures. They shouldn't be different when I'm referring to yesterday's figures. But in this case, they gave us this particular figure within that same period. That figure has changed when they were pronouncing the 8th edition of the exercise.
Okay.
And so now, if you come and look at the daily, and this is how they are doing it. What they did earlier on, we called them by doing the daily inflation of the figures. It's the same thing that they are still doing. It's, you know, they are stealing, or their fraud strategy is just a straight one. On the first,
using the Electoral Commission of fraud.
It's fraud.
Do you have any evidence to?
These are the evidence we are mentioning.
Okay.
And if you look at the first phase, they said they registered 2,201,405. It's on their website. When they were giving us another figures on the Let the Citizen Know on the 8th edition, they said they registered 2,203,445. The difference was 2,040. Where from this figure? On the second phase, they registered 2,219,519. When they were giving us the update on the 8th edition, 16,677. Now, on their final list that they brought, they said the first day they registered 317,851. It's no more 316,000, but it is now 317,000 on daily basis.
Are these enough reasons to have asked Ghanaians to reject the numbers provided by the Electoral Commission?
Of course. You see, the Electoral Commission, their motto is transparency and accountability in motion. This is their motto.
Okay.
So if your motto is about transparency, and from your first phase, you came out with inflated figures, Ghanaians came out and said, look, this thing you are bringing out is not a true reflection of what happened at on the grounds. And you came out and said you have changed them, and you apologize. And after that, the figures you are giving us are consistently inaccurate. Up to now, on daily basis, on phases by phases, up to today, if I'm to go by day, from phase 2, day 2, the same thing. Phase, the same phase 2, day 11, and day 12, the same different figures. The same phase 3, day 13, the same different figures. Phase 4, day 19, the same different figures. So you can see that either the Electoral Commission, they don't know their job, they are incompetent, or a reason best known to them to intentionally inflate these figures for whatever they think is the reason, as I said earlier on. If not, we have not seen this kind of inconsistency when it comes to figures.
Okay.
And as I said example earlier on, if I have my my records of the past event.
Okay.
And I'm going to add them to the present event. The past records shouldn't change. But in this case, we saw the past records changing. So it is either one thing. The Electoral Commission have been registering people behind the scene where we don't know. Or they intentionally to inflate these figures so they will fill in the gap later on somewhere.
Have you written to the Electoral Commission to find out if, of course, to explain why the numbers keep changing?
We are yet to even do this thing within this week. We are writing to them, and we are also going to release all the figures and point to them that, look, as the president said, this particular exercise is one of the credible register ever. It is very unfortunate. We believe that the president was misled during the Ameri deal. The president was misled during the PDS deal as well. And the president has been misled once again in the compilation of this new voters register.
All right, thank you so much for speaking to us. We are so grateful for your time. We've been speaking to Mr. Azubila Salam Emmanuel, Executive Secretary for Adam GH. Away from that, Vice President Alhaji Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia says all road infrastructure projects which are currently under construction will be completed as scheduled. He made this known at a ceremony to cut salt for the construction of Nungwa Beach Road here in Accra.
The Vice President's cutting sod on Friday at Nungwa indicated that the construction of the Pukwasi and Tamale interchange, as well as many other projects across the country, will be completed as planned by his government, and said the new Patriotic Party administration commitment to improving Ghana's road network is on course. He further reiterated the announcement of his government in declaring this year as the year of roads, and said roads constructions are massively ongoing everywhere in the country, including the major cities. There is no government in the history of the Fourth Republic that has started 4 interchanges in their first term, he concluded.
Now, the communication officer of the opposition Progressive People's Party, PPP, Felix Mate, said his party will decouple the office of the Ministry of Justice and Attorney General by amending Article 88 of the Constitution. This, he said, will help address the corruption menace facing the country over the years, which his party is determined in amending the article when elected into office. He made this statement on Talk Time with Kwesi Pratt Jr. here on Pan-African Television.
We're going to finance this big program.
We have another policy where we plan dealing with corruption. I'm telling you one aspect. Dealing with corruption head on. Like separating the Attorney General's office from that of the Minister of Justice. To fight corruption without the interference of government. Somebody who is more
independent. That's what this government did by setting up the office of the special prosecutor.
And is that office independent of the government?
Is it not independent of the government?
It is an agency under the Ministry of Justice and then the Attorney General.
So the office that you are going to set up, who would it be under?
It is an independent prosecutor who is not going to be under the minister, who may approve or may not approve his work.
So are you going to amend the Constitution?
That's it. Yes.
Which portion of the Constitution?
That is what you have stated, that you amend relevant portions of the Constitution which talks about the Minister of Justice and the Attorney General, which puts them together. That article should be amended.
Even if you separate Ministry of Justice from Attorney General, you still have a problem.
Why must you have a problem? It's because maybe the president is the one who's going to...
No, because the Constitution says the prosecutorial powers in this country are vested in the Attorney General.
That is why we are going to amend the Constitution.
Is that provision?
So it's a provision.
Is that provision entrenched?
It's a provision. It's a provision we are going to amend, whether being entrenched or not entrenched. If it is entrenched, you go for a referendum and then amend it. And it is possible. It must be done.
Is it entrenched or is not entrenched?
Uncle Pratt.
Yes, sir.
The point is, our policy is to amend the constitutional provision that put the Minister of Justice and Attorney General together. Our interest is to make sure it is amended, be it entrenched or not entrenched. Asking me, is it entrenched? We all know the position of that article already. So we are asking, you know it. So asking me a direct question whether it's been entrenched or it's not being entrenched, it's like you just want to put me on the limelight and ask someone.
I want to
but I'm not going to answer that question though. Whichever.
Why are you not going to answer it?
Mr. Pratt.
I want to know whether it's entrenched or not, so that I can ask the follow-up question about how we're going to do it.
And I've told you that if it is entrenched, you go for a referendum. If it is not entrenched, Parliament deals with it.
What if it's entrenched? What if you don't have 2/3 of the membership of Parliament? How are you going to implement that policy?
It's about consultation. It is about dialogue and then building consensus with the people of Ghana. That's all we need.
That consensus is needed in Parliament.
Exactly. If it is not entrenched, it is needed in Parliament. And I've told you. So parliamentarians are Ghanaians, of course.
Even entrenched provisions, to amend them, you need 2/3 votes in Parliament for the referendum.
That's exactly so. We know all these provisions. We know these requirements in the Constitution. And I just said that to amend any portion of the Constitution, for instance, amending the portion that will elect the MMDCs, you don't just wake up and go out there and say, I'm going to do a referendum. You build consensus.
Okay. So you want to separate Attorney General's office from the Minister of Justice. So you're going to have 2 ministers instead of 1. Are you considering the size of government?
We have proposed having a maximum 40 members of ministers in government to run the affairs of this country. That's what the Progressive People's Party has proposed.
Veteran journalist and managing editor of the Insight newspaper, Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr., has descended on a Kenyan-based Pan-Africanist and academic, Professor Patrick Elo Lumumba, for recognizing President Akufo-Addo as a great leader. Speaking on Pan-African Television's Good Morning Africa, the managing editor of the Insight newspaper indicated that Professor Lumumba, over the years, has been inconsistent with his ideologies.
Should be observed as a commemorative day. It is not a national holiday. And they have elected to make August 4th the national holiday in place of Republican Day. So they have devalued the Republican status of Ghana completely. And yet, this is what Professor Lumumba admires. Something must be seriously wrong with Professor Lumumba. Now, Professor Lumumba, who sees himself as an Nkrumahist, is on every platform proclaiming himself as an Nkrumahist. Perhaps he's not aware of the fact that over the last 3.5 years, this administration, led by Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, has done everything possible to devalue the contribution of Nkrumah to the independence struggle in Ghana. You understand? Now, if Professor Lumumba is what he is, one would believe that he believes in what Samira Mill and others put together as the alternative to the structural adjustment program, which emphasizes national self-reliance and collective self-reliance of the African people, you know, as opposed to the prescriptions of the Bretton Woods institutions and so on. And if he does, how does he endorse a government which believes in property-owning democracy? Which believes in property-owning democracy, which is beholden to the prescriptions of the Bretton Woods institutions and so on. Clearly, there is something seriously wrong with Professor Lumumba himself and the claims that he has been making. They are inconsistent with his public posturing. They are inconsistent with some of the statements he's been making now. And I would not be fooled into thinking that Professor Lumumba is a serious Pan-Africanist wishing Africa and Ghana to move forward on the path of collective self-reliance and unity. He is not.
Go to the quarters of the opposition National Democratic Congress, where flag bearer of the party, John Dramani Mahama, has stated that the NDC will invest a whopping $10 billion into infrastructural development should the party win the polls come December 7, 2020. He made this statement during a tour to introduce his running mate, Professor Nana Akufo-Addo, to the Christian and Islamic communities in Accra.
Republic. As I speak to you today, our economy has not been in worse shape than it is today. And so when I say the economy is in ICU, it really is in ICU. And that is why I'm running up for office. We're running for office to restore our democratic rights. People can speak freely and express themselves without fear that somebody will kill you. We're running for office so that we can restore our economy, prosperity, and jobs for our young people. And that is why I've come out with two key promises. And one I call the big push. The big push is going to finance infrastructure for development and economic prosperity with a $10 billion injection. And we're going to structure this big push, $10 billion big push, without adding it onto the public debt as the current government has done. In 3.5 years, this government has borrowed more than $140 billion. All the work that I did, the hospitals, the roads, the interchanges, the electricity, the water, in the 4 years that I served as president, we borrowed 54 billion Ghana cedis. In 3.5 years, this government has borrowed more than 140 billion.
Away from Ghana, now let's do some other stories from our neighboring African countries. Zimbabwe's government has dismissed a letter by Roman Catholic bishops highlighting corruption, poverty, and human rights abuses. According to Information Secretary Nick Mangana, there is no crisis, either political or otherwise, in the country. He accused the Zimbabwe Catholic Bishops' Conference of joining groups seeking to manufacture crisis.
The bishops had called for an urgent resolution to the country's economic and political challenges. The challenge in Zimbabwe has resulted in multi-layered crisis of convergence of economic collapse, deepening poverty, food insecurity, and human rights abuses, said 7 bishops from Zimbabwe's main cities and towns in the letter released on Friday. Corruption in the country has reached alarming levels, they added. Zimbabweans have been protesting against the alleged government corruption and a deepening economic crisis with inflation running at more than 700%. President Emmerson Mnangagwa has, however, blamed his political opponent of working with foreigners to try to destabilize the country. He called them bad apples and warned that he will flush them out. His government has recently attached heavy criticism over a crackdown targeting anti-government protesters, which has resulted in several people being assaulted and arrested. Prominent journalist Chinono was charged last month with inciting public violence. He is still in detention after being denied bail. He had exposed alleged corruption in the health ministry during the purchase of medical supplies to tackle the coronavirus pandemic. Images of police assaulting protesters have been shared online, sparking a global campaign using the hashtag Zimbabwean Life Matter to highlight right abuses.
Now let's go to Kenya, where rising water levels in lakes along the Great Rift Valley have forced thousands of people from their homes in Kenya to seek refuge elsewhere. The situation has also rendered dozens of people jobless, as the issue is yet to be addressed.
It follows severe flooding aftermath of unusual heavy rainfall, which campaigners say has been made worse by illegal deforestation. Lake Baringo and Lake Bogoria, once 20 kilometers, 12.5 miles apart, are now so close together that there are fears they could contaminate each other, threatening wildlife and livelihoods still further. As the frequency of extreme weather events increase, climate experts warned of above normal levels of rainfall in the already saturated region in coming months. Africa's largest inland body of water, Lake Victoria, which is shared by Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania, hit the highest level ever recorded in mid-May, submerging part of towns and whole villages on its banks, and weather levels are still high. Around 233,000 people have been affected by the floods in Kenya, and more than 116,000 displaced, according to the Kenya Red Cross, after 2 consecutive seasons of record rain caused rivers across the country to burst their banks, devastating towns and villages.
Now, the office of the managing editor of the Inside newspaper, Mr. Kwesi Prajina, has been broken by unknown persons. Information reaching us here at Pan-African Television has said that his safe has been broken, laptops and phones have also been carried away. Very well, viewers, as you can see, that is the footage right there on your screens. The office of the managing editor of the Inside newspaper, Mr. Kwesi Prajina, has been broken by unknown persons. Some items such as phone and laptops have been carried away. His safe, we are told, has also been broken. It looks as if the persons who broke into his office are looking for some information they did not get, or probably they are looking for some documents, and so that's what is being displayed on your screens currently, as you can see. Well, away from that, let's do some business story. Authorities at the Tema Port say they are ready to support any logistical and infrastructural platforms geared towards improving export and import of goods. Mrs. Sandra Poku, Director of Port, Tema, giving the assurance, said, "We're happy to support any logistic and infrastructure platform that would aid in trade facilitation from the ship side right into the hinterlands."
Speaking of the commissioning of 10 million Ghana cedis way bridge and truck park constructed by the Q&Q Services, a subsidiary of Kingdom Exim Group of Companies, and the Tema Metropolitan Assembly Director of Port, Sandra Opoku, disclosed that the Tema Port in 2019 handled over 17 million metric tons of cargo, and indicated that such facilities will serve a good purpose in the maritime business, as it will complement the one in the port and those belonging to the Ghana Highway Authorities. She noted that there was the need to ensure that trucks were properly weighed before and after they loaded to prevent early deterioration of roads in the country. Deputy Minister of Transport Titus Glover said the project came at an opportune time when the country was struggling to ensure that its roads were safer. He urged the TMA and the port authorities to ensure that every truck that loaded from the Tema Port passed through the Way Bridge. Samuel Atachre, Minister of Work and Housing commended the company for investing into the various sectors of the economy, saying the government would always remember the company's social intervention as it showed humanity over corporate profit. Mr. Chira urged them to consider venturing into the provision of affordable housing to help bridge the deficit in the housing in Ghana. The facility situated near the harbour runabout and close to the port and other major terminals has an in-house way bridge, security, CCTV cameras, driver sitting area, hygienic washrooms, as well as drinking water for drivers.
That'll be all for business. Up next is international news. Back now, let's take some stories from our international partners. People's Dispatch. On August 14, Friday, members of the housing rights group in UK, ACON, and local residents in East Britain protested at Britain Gasworks site, demanding affordable housing on the Britain Gasworks site instead of building expensive luxury flats. At Britain Gasworks site, massive constructions are underway by the development company St. William Homes in order to build 700 homes.
The protesters have demanded that the authorities and construction company should ensure affordable housing spaces in the new building instead of luxury apartment of multimillionaires. The protesters have also called Alison Dowsett, managing director of St. William Homes, to come to a public meeting to listen to the demand of the local resident. The Brighton Committee of ACON has said that we heard testimonies from our local members about how the housing crisis affected our communities and have over 40 members and local residents there in support. We are demanding that the development project include at least 40% affordable housing at rates genuinely affordable for local people. Local people are properly consulted before any decision are made. ACON has also initiated a community survey demanding affordable housing for East Brighton. Towards that, ACON has stated that the property development company, St. Williams, are planning to submit a planning application to Brighton and Hove City Council to develop the Gasworks site on Boundaries Road in East Brighton. The proposed plan shows they plan to build up to 700 homes, but there are no clear commitment to how many of those will be affordable. St. Williams have a track record of changing high prices for their homes, including a recent development near Battersea Park, Park Station in London, where one-bedroom flats are currently advertised for up to €894,000. Brighton has enough luxury flats. What we need are affordable homes for local people. ACON has also given a call for a community meeting on September 11th at East Brighton Park. Earlier in May this year, ACON has organized mobilization across the UK demanding the government to immediately resolve homelessness and other grievances, including rent debt, during the COVID-19 crisis.
Now, on Sunday, August 16, tens of thousands of supporters of Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko gathered in Minsk, declaring their support for Lukashenko. The opposition parties in Belarus, backed by the European Union, EU, have been protesting against the sixth consecutive victory of Alexander Lukashenko in the presidential polls held on August 9.
The continuing anti-Lukashenko protest and the crackdown on protests has created an atmosphere filled with tension and panic, especially in the capital city, Minsk. The pro-Lukashenko section, including the cadres of the Communist Party of Belarus, have hit the street on Sunday as the pro-West forces in Belarus are desperately trying to replicate the Euromaidan protests that happened in Ukraine 2013 to 2014. While addressing the gathering in Independence Square in Minsk, President Alexander Lukashenko stated that he would not give up the country to his opponent. He has rejected the possibility of holding a repeat presidential election, succumbing to the threat and blackmail by the EU and the West. If Belarusians want reforms, they will begin tomorrow, he added. The Communist Party of Belarus and the Union of Communist Parties, Communist Party of the Sovereignty Union, have already extended their solidarity and support to Alexander Lukashenko against the orchestrated attempt for sabotage by the pro-EU West forces. As predicted, Belarus, the last pro-Russian, anti-EU political establishment in Eastern Europe, slipped to chaos when the incumbent President Alexander Lukashenko and consecutive sixth term in presidential office on August 9th by winning 80% of the vote. Major opponents refused to accept the mandate, alleging Lukashenko's political high-handedness in the conduct and outcome of the polls. Since then, widespread protests had started in Belarus by opposition, which initially met a police crackdown.
Finally, on the international front, hundreds of people have demonstrated in Copenhagen on August 14, Friday, demanding a consent law to ensure proper legal protection for rape victims. The gathering was organized by around 24 groups, including Everyday Sexing Project, Women's Council, Denmark's Social Democratic Youth, Socialist Youth Front, Red Green Youth, among others.
The participants in the march wore masks and gloves, adhering to COVID-19 safety protocols. According to an Abajideren.dk, the worker report, the demonstrators have demanded that the government should immediately clearly announce the summit's proposal for a new content-based rape law. Earlier, the incumbent Social Democrat coalition government, led by Mette Frederiksen, and the coalition partners, including the Red Green Alliance, has agreed to take the initiative to introduce a content-based legislation. By the Criminal Law Council report from February on a new rape law, a majority expresses concern about a content law and opines that the new law should be based on voluntariness based on the attitude that the requirement of consent can criminalize what some describe as normal sexual behavior, where the woman is passive. Such a recommendation in the report has triggered criticism from the progressive section, including the leftists and feminists in the country. Prior to the demonstration on Friday, Everyday Sexism Project Denmark has stated that we need consent law, and it must be without exception and without stringent interpretation, that in certain situations you will still have a duty to stand up. Passivity, flirting and clothing can never be a consent. It simply can't be true that in many other daily practice we can figure out how to ask for consent and then make it a problem that you have to make sure you don't hurt any person because it's act about sex. If you don't think it's important to get consent before sex, you send a signal that you are more afraid of getting a no than you being afraid of going to commit an assault. Sex is lively, delicious and sometimes amazing, but it can also be dirty, boring and indifferent, and it's totally okay. It's not important how you do it, but it's important that it's with consent. Let's get a law that gives protection to victims and send a signal to society about what is right and wrong. That you can help change our culture in a better direction, they added.
Now credit to People's Dispatch for the international stories. Up next, a sports update with Michael Entry Busiako.